Rob, welcome to the Tales of Leadership. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. As how we were talking about right before we started to film this, like I have that infantry mentality, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to navigate technology. So great to have you on the show. I know you're a legend, like in your own right. And when I had an opportunity to bring you on, I've never had someone from your background, like within like the Special Operations Command within the Navy, come on. And I always love starting off
Mhm,
with just getting calibrated in terms of the scope of leadership.
mhm.
How would you define it, like simply put in your words, before we jump into your story?
Well, I usually tell people leadership are four things that I've learned over my expansive career, and not just the military, but in the civilian sector. Is leadership is, and it's not about how much you know, as far as like the equipment you work on, or the files, or any of that stuff. It's about inspiration, direction, guidance, and hope. I know a lot of people use that differently, but inspiration, because you have to inspire your people, and a lot of military leaders do that. Get out there, give the speech. It's more than the speech. They have to believe you believe what you're saying to them, and you have to know that they understand what you're talking about. So inspiring them, even when you're not around, you're inspiring them. Giving them guidance is that you're going to make mistakes, right? You have to understand they're going to make mistakes. If they're growing, they're not you, they're them, and then you can see that pattern of success for them. So you guide them into get them where they're going to be, and whether it's take your job or some other job, you have to be allowed to let them go. So guide them, give them direction, specifically when they're doing something wrong, or you're reading everything about that person, especially in the military. You're reading everything about their family, their careers, and them as individuals, and also their past. So give them direction on where they can be, giving them, as far as like you're an E2 now, and you could become an officer, you could become a pilot, you can change ratings. And the MOS is of the Army, but the Navy, you have this NECs, Navy enlisted codes. You can change those to be a better fit, because you didn't know when you first came in. And civilian sector would be the same thing, and talk to a person. In fact, this may not be, you may be a player out of position. And then hope is something we all aspire to have. Hope is something someone gives you, and that's something you have, right? You don't have hope, people give you hope. And all those things, they're rolled into any conversation you have with somebody on any given day, in any conversation. So those are my four things: inspiration, direction, guidance, and hope.
I love those. I kind of all bound down in inspiration. I think you and I see it almost the same way. It comes down to one word for me, and it's to inspire. Like that's how I define leadership. And I love how we're aligned to two different branches. You grew up in the Navy. I'm still growing up in the Army, so
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'd like to take it back to the beginning, of your journey. Where did you believe? Really instilling that warrior culture, like warrior ethos. Where did that start with you?
I'm also I got a master's in psychology, and I spent a lot of time thinking about the inner workings of my brain and other people as
Yeah.
well. I had somebody ask me the other day, it's like, where does that come from? Where does that, I figured it out when I was at a very young age, that I wasn't going to be like everybody in my neighborhood. I'm sure you're the same way. You're in the Army. Um, I don't know. I want to say everybody can lead, right? But
Yeah.
there's some people that are just born to lead, right? That whole, and I'm not saying I'm one of them. I'm saying that there's people that are always going to stand out among every head and shoulders of everyone else, no matter what they do. It's part of their work ethic. It's part of their own self reflections, their own self efficacy. They're just these people that just get shit done no matter what. And my earlier age, when I was younger, I always did things that was not. This is not a selfishness, or it's a more of a selflessness of
Yeah.
always trying to help people. When I was younger, you see somebody that needed some guidance, you would just naturally do that. So my earliest memory of helping somebody was like 10 or 11 years old. Didn't understand what it was, just understand that that person needs help, and I want to help them, and then talk to them
Mm.
and work with them. um, and then moving forward, as I always thought differently when I first joined the military, I was 17 and a half years old, and they made me the RPOD of the company, my boot camp company. I was in charge of my boot camp company. As far as like I wasn't in charge. I was the guy they went to, yelled at, to make
Yeah.
sure the company was straight. And I learned at an earlier age that people Some people just don't listen to you because of your age. People listen to you because of your background, or they have more experience with you. You have to figure out a way to get to them, and that was my first exposure. And, oddly enough I think this is the thing with combat vets as well, is that because nothing had ever happened to me like majorly when I was in boot camp. It wasn't until my company commander, said I had to go to, it's called a MO tour, motivational tour, when they send you out after working hours and you get the crap beat out of you. And I came back to for some reason they're like, yeah, he's been in prison too. he's one of us. And I thought, that's a shitty way of getting people on the same. That means you've brought me down instead of me lifting you up. So from that moment forward, I'm like, I have what I need to do, because I don't want to be pulled down. I want to be brought up. I want to elevate people. So this is what leaders do. I change how I approach people. I change how what my expectations are of people back then. So at an early age, I learned that you can be pulled down at their level, or you can raise them up at the level they can be, not your level, but their level.
I think like that mindset that was instilled in you, I think within the Navy, was really forged in some of like your earlier childhood, right? Like growing up in Mississippi and then moving to Chicago, and then just like a hard life, if that makes sense. Like I grew up in rural West Virginia, and I have like a level of work ethic that most people don't understand, because that was kind of instilled within me and my father and my grandfather, like getting up at 3 a.m. and working at the coal mines, like legitimately still doing that. And seeing that every day, and then seeing my dad go up to our neighbors and mowing grass for them, like, because they're too old to do it. Just a selfless act. This dude's been on his hands and knees in a coal mine for like 30 inches for the last like 12 hours, but he'll go do something for you. I would love to know, like from your perspective, and I heard this before from you, of like, how do we train to be a lion? Like hard work, that mentality. Where did that start, like really in some of like your informative years before you decided you wanted to go join the Navy? And we could talk about life choices too. I'm curious why you didn't join the Army.
The Navy was the closest door when I went in the recruiter's office. I think it's, if I understand your question correctly, I think it's because I had seen a lot of bad stuff growing up at different schools.
Yeah.
And I got pulled into it like every other kid would be. You got to I felt I either be with the pack or lead the pack. And it was much better feeling to lead the pack than it was to follow the pack. This is when I was younger. I wasn't like, put me in charge. I just felt that it was, the gangs and stuff when I was young. And this is not gangs like the Crips and the Bloods. This is like a bunch of high school kids all around trying to protect themselves. I know for a fact that I didn't want to be part of a group, and I got my own friends, and we did our own thing. And it was more in direction of, let's just protect each other. So it's natural. I don't say natural leadership, but definitely not wanting to follow somebody else. And I understand, earlier on that the world there's followers and there's leaders, but to be a good leader, this, if you're a good leader, then you're a good follower. And to be a good follower, you got to be a good leader. You have to be inspiring and being inspiring. So you follow. We're always working for somebody and what they want us to be able to do. So in my younger years, I'm talking pre-high school, a lot of these things took place, and I didn't know, but I never knew that the military existed before then. I didn't know that you're born in the ghettos. There's not a lot of stuff you don't have a lot of. I don't say there's not a lot of opportunity. I would say that you're unaware of any opportunity, because no one gets to college, and no one so you're not looking forward to, like my big brothers in college. I didn't have that.
Is that because it's like living in like almost like a bubble in a way? Because like I could see that from like where I grew up in rural West Virginia. Like you stay in the holler, and like I have friends that stay in the holler because they don't understand there's a world outside of where they grew up.
That's exactly what it is. It's not that you're not, you watch TV, you see movies, you go on the internet, but that's what other people do, right? You're not exposed to it you're not exposed to anything outside of your environment. I don't know if it's like this where you live, but I would only venture out past my 3 or 4 blocks from where I live when I had some place to go or something I had to do. And then I was a different person when I got out. I went to the malls out in the suburbs and those things. So you're I think you're not captivated, but you're limited to what's in your environment, right? You're limited by what's your environment. I was telling somebody the other day, and I said, why do people continue to do the things they do? And I said, well, because they don't know there's other opportunities out there.
100%.
Yeah, they just don't know. And when you join the military, you go, hey, you can be this MOS, you can go over here, you can be stationed over here. What? Where's that? How do I get there? Especially your first overseas tour, you're like, well, these people are complete. How is this possible? You're blown away. And I think that's something that the military offers people, is gives you a worldview, right? Not local lifestyle, but it's a worldview of things and how they are. And you realize that we're all different, but we're all the same. When you travel, and then you're exposed to other people within your unit, within the service you choose. But really, when that first time you go overseas and you're with your buddies, you're like, all right, yeah, things are different, but they're the same. So
I think that's one thing that's really like helped me too, is just being exposed to people within the military, because it come from all different walks of life, but seeing like the caliber of those individuals. Because what I've learned is that if you come into a great organization, like there's a bare minimum, that's the standard, like to be successful. But most of those people are above the bar, and then that standard always just moves up. And I never truly understood that because I wasn't around like a lot of meat eaters, I guess, like growing up. That had that work ethic and drive. But being in like a culture like that, it just takes you to places that you didn't think you could like physically go to.
Oh yeah. Pipe hitters.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I tell a story to people, and I try to explain to them. They go, what was what was it like to be a SEAL? And I said, well, when I was at SEAL Team 2, this is back in 1987. I went to SEAL Team 2. I was like all the other young pups that went over there the first year. And then, you walk in the door and you think you're hot shit at Buds, and you get out of Buds, you go there and you're like, oh man, I'm less than where I was at Buds. At least when I went to Buds, I was, as you became the senior class, you're like, yeah. You're flexing. You get to your team, you're like, you're slower than everybody else because these guys have been running for years. Like, you don't know the other courses. They shoot better. Everything they do is mountains better than what you do. But you realize that I'll be that guy someday. I'll be that guy who's running this command in a couple of years. And you get there, you get a couple deployments underneath your belt, and you're working your ass off because you're, like you said, you're around people there's an expectation that you're going to be better while you're there. It's in the mindset of everyone in that place is that, I ran 7 minutes last week. I'm trying to get down to, they don't go, I'm trying to get down to 6:58. They're going, I'm trying to get down to, 6. Right.
You talking like 1 mile time?
Yeah, 1 mile time. It's like, I'm trying to get down to 6 minutes. And you're like, that's like a full minute. It's like, yeah, I'm busting my ass. And on the 3 mile, I want to be under 15 minutes. You're like, those are the caliber people you're around. I went for a run once I was a dev group. I'm going to come back to the SEAL Team 2 thing in a second, but I remember this guy, Mark Lee, and I can't think of the other guy's name. They go, hey, Rob, you've been around. I was not like an old guy there, but I'd been there like 5 years, but I still was the new guy. And they're like, we're going to go for a run. You want to go with us? And I remember jogging with them, and they were going to do a 5 mile run. And they're like, slow the fuck down. It's like, no, we gotta. It's like, hey man, hey, this is a strategic run. We're just gonna do 5 miles. We're not trying to run. And then I was like, oh, okay. Like, oh yeah, I'm with the like cool guys. You get to, it's typical. You get to the last half mile or so before you run back into the compound. And I'm like, I take off running, and I get back in there. I'm like, what happened, guys? What? And they're like, you're never going to run with us again. Like, you don't understand. There's a time for that. And there's a time just to talk and learn. There's a time to learn about things. And that's what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to learn while you're there. We could run as fast as you, but we were talking, so you're banned from their old guy club. Like, what the fuck? I didn't understand it until I got older.
There's some wisdom in that. So a similar story, but like a bruise to my ego. So
Yeah.
young infantry officer,
Yeah.
just completed Ranger school, airborne school, all these things. Did a combat deployment to Afghanistan, led troops in combat on hundreds of missions. And then I come back and I'm an XO for a brave company under 4th Battalion, 23rd Infantry Regiment at Fort Lewis. We're going on these ability group runs. So like A group, the Alpha group is the fastest group, a bunch of privates that run like 4-minute miles. They're a bunch of like crazy monsters. And I remember running because you have to have an officer in the front. And then Staff Sergeant Lineweber, I'll never forget that dude. He's just a mountain of a man. He pulls me to the side in the middle of the run, talking calmly. And I couldn't even have a conversation because we were running like 6-minute mile pace. It's like, sir, like I love your enthusiasm. I love the hard work that you're putting into it, but you're bringing this group down. You need to go back to B. And I'm like, oh my God. And it like hurt my soul. It still hurts my soul. Like 14 years later, I look back at that. And I was like, man, that's the first time I've ever been called out.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of like take it to, you joined the military.
Yeah.
Did you join the Navy SEALs immediately, or were you?
No, I didn't. I had a couple of traumatic things in my life, and I wanted to get out of where I was. I was raised in Milwaukee. I actually eventually grew up in Milwaukee. You know, the drugs and all that other stuff. I would cross over that before I got on the bus to go to school, and then come back I'd be at my school in the suburbs, and then I would come back. And then there were two different worlds. Not like now. Nowadays, everybody's kind of the same. You know, the kids are all kind of the same. But back then, there was definitely two paths. There were the kids that would go to a school and they were going to go to college, and there were the kids their world was right around their block. And I went to the school where kids were the path to go to, and there were kids out there that weren't going to go, but the majority of the kids were planning to go to some kind of college. And I remember my junior year, and I thought, what the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to pay for me to go to college. My grades are not good enough to go to college, because I should have, you know, thinking back now, I was like, well, I should have been working on that when I was a freshman. But I knew I wasn't going to. So I joined the Navy. I watched my heroes. This is different because I'm older, but my heroes were, you know, Batman, Robin, that came on 3 channels. Bob Hope was something that inspired me, oddly enough, in those USO shows, or I would watch them in the movies, and it would seem like the Navy was something that was always prideful. They had great uniforms, always looked good, always having fun. I thought, oh, I'll do that. I'll just go to the Navy. And I went with the Navy's office because the Army recruiter, the Marine Corps recruiter were set further back in the building. So I went in the first office I saw was that. My brother was a Marine. And I had family members that had been in the Army, but the Navy guys were right there when they were all cool. They were smoking, you know, I walked in, just like really cool. Like I saw in the movies. I was like, well, I'm going to go with these guys. I would say, looking back, that it probably wasn't the best experience for me when I first went in. I always felt that I was limited by my choices. Because I was drawn more to the combat and more to the structured stuff. When I got in the Navy, I thought, oh, this is not what I really want to be doing. I don't actually like this. So I joined the Navy, went to boot camp, and then I spent 4 years on the USS Nimitz. Off and on, I was in the Airedale, and a squadron that would fly on and fly off, fly on and fly off. This is during the Middle East years where, you know, it was a shit show. So we're deployed all the time. I was at sea for 9 months at a time. Left there after 4 years. There was a big fire on the USS Nimitz.
Yeah.
It basically changed the Navy's policy on drugs and beards and everything. Little PTSD from it. First time I saw people dying that were like, not a shot dying or overdosing, but shot that died of fire teams they call them fire teams, and they're fighting fires, but the explosives were going off. And I watched, you know, I could still see it, you know, it is with PTSD. You can visually see the moment and smell of that action, or that whatever that is, right there, like that. It's snapshot, it freezes in your brain. So that's the first time I've seen people die. Like a lot of people die. And then I can remember people running back, like the bodies coming back, parts of them, because the planes had hit and they basically collided and it decapitated a bunch of people. So they have the military, not getting off track, but They have the casualty elevators where all the casualties go. It's the same thing in combat, but I guess on the carrier. Casualty elevator, all the dead people go over there, all the injured people go over here. I got up there and I fought this fire, like from 10 feet away with a fire hose all night long. Because if I didn't, there's like 25 of us. If we didn't fight the fire, you have to cool all the bombs down, put the fire out, and cool all the bombs down. Because the internal temperature was hotter than the external temperature. So they were going to explode. And if they explode on a carrier, you only have one way home. And they used these big Phoenix bombs back then, right? They're ship killers.
Yeah.
So when I got done with that, I was like, oh, I do not want to be on a character this at all. So they said, you got another year left. Where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Spain. I enjoyed Spain, right? I would live there for 2 years. I was there about 6 months, realized that, this is going to sound fucked up, but, so Navy had just started putting women in the military, as far as like these combat roles. And I will say, I had a hard time with it.
Yeah.
I really had a hard time with it. I just say I had a hard time with it. They sent me someplace else to work. That's how bad it was. I went work with the Master Arms, and over there I met a guy who was a SEAL and said, "Hey, you're probably in the wrong job. And this is where you get the player out of position thing from. You probably were never meant to be doing that, but that's all you knew at the particular time." Because I wanted to get out and play football at University of Maryland as I was running back over in Spain on the Navy base. And they're like, "That's beneath where you." This guy told me, he goes, "That's beneath you. You're grasping at things because you don't know anything better." He said, "You should be in special operations." I was like, "The what? The special what?" No internet back then, no TV shows, no nothing about it. And he says, "Oh, it's the SEAL program." I asked somebody at your command about the SEAL program. And I was like, "Hey, send back to me and ask you about the SEAL command." They're like, "Oh, you want to become a Navy SEAL?" I was like, no, I just want to know what it is. They're like, well, why do you want to know about it then? I was like, because he said I should do it. And they started laughing at me, like, "You want to become a Navy SEAL?" I go, "No, I just want to know about the program. I don't want to be a Navy SEAL. Well, why do you want to know about it?" Because this guy told me I should. I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, why don't you just do your job?
Yeah, just tell me, bro.
Tell me about it. Why make it? I can't find anything else about it. No, because there were no SEALs on my base. So they're like, "Yeah, they're the guys that do this. They do all this special operations," which is still the same thing, right? They do special operations, like what? Like shooting, and I'm like, "That's all they do?" Like, "Yeah, they're like a sports team." That's what they told me. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll
That
do
sounds
that."
awesome.
Sounds often. I'll be on the Navy's athletic team because I was a good athlete. I was like, "Oh yeah, I can do that. I'll do that." And I met another guy that was like, "Yeah." He was in the hospital. His name is Clark Cummings. Was at SEAL Team 6. I met him later again at Dev Group. He's the one that actually told me. He didn't tell me about the SEAL teams. He told me he embellished on the story that I already knew. Right? He was a SEAL, been SEAL for a long time. Was flown into the hospital there. I had a friend of mine work there. I said, "Hey, there's some guys Navy SEAL here. You want to become a Navy SEAL? Come and talk to him." So I came over. I went over shyly, went over and talked to him. He goes, "What do you want to know?" I said, "I don't know anything about the SEAL teams." He goes, "What do you know?" I go, "They work out." He goes, "Oh yeah, they work out all the time." He just added that in there to me because you know what? If you do go, don't work out before you go because you're gonna run a lot when you get there. You just drink and party. It's not that big of a deal.
Oh wow, that's horrible advice.
No, right? I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you can stay in some shape, get your miles up, but don't get all carried away because that's all they're gonna do is gonna beat you down when you get there." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, they're just gonna work you out when you get there. It's like a sports team." And I was like, "Why is it such a mystery then?" They're like, "Yeah, because they do other stuff too, but yeah, you shouldn't worry about that now." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Okay. Impressionable boy. So he goes, "How old are you?" And I said, I think I was 24. He goes, "Oh yeah, you're good." I was like, "What? Because I'm 24?" He goes, "Yeah, you got life experience." And I was like, "Well, that's weird. But hey, whatever." This guy said I should do it. So I went back to my command and said, "Hey," they go, "Why do you want to be a Navy SEAL?" I said, "Because this guy in the hospital who's a Navy SEAL says I should do it." Like, "You gonna quit?" I said, because I'd gotten no's. Because remember, I had a previous experience with all my new division officers, and they were all females, and they were like, "You're never gonna make it. You don't have the discipline. You don't have the respect." And I was like, "And chosen words, just sign it and deny it. That's okay." Because they have to, the military, you have to sign these chits. You have to request shit to do something else. So but it has to be run up to your division officer, your department head, everybody else. And it was no, 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 no until I got to the XO. And I said, he goes, why do you want to become a Navy SEAL? I said, well, because that guy over there says I should become a Navy SEAL based on my background. And he says, well, yeah, have you ever quit anything? I said, no, I would never quit anything. So if you go to SEAL team, you're not going to quit. I said, I promise you I won't quit. I don't quit anything. That's probably my problem is I'm hard-headed. But there's nothing can make me quit once I start something. And I don't know where that comes from, by the way. I don't know where that part of me comes from. It's like, maybe I'm hard-headed, but I signed up 6 months later. Go ahead.
I think maybe that comes back from like one of the things you said earlier is that there's some people who just have natural talents and abilities to lead, like natural leaders. And I think some people are just born with that dog in them. I can't explain it either. I don't fully understand it, but I just feel like it's something that's ingrained in our DNA.
It has to be. I think when I went to Buds and I first got there, I thought, okay, I'm over my head. Fuck it. I'm gonna stay here. The first thing I realized after the first run in the soft sand on the beach was, oh, this is not what he told me. I kept thinking, he lied to me. But but I got there. I got there. And so it's up to me to stay there, is what I thought. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to excel while I'm here. And the only place that can make me leave, because I'd heard this from Bobby Richardson, the only person that can make you leave, Buds, is you, right?
Yeah.
It's so he's like, the only person to make you leave, Buds, is you. So everybody's got this same opportunity. Everybody starts the same, no matter what they say to you. The only person that's going to have you leave here, because you can fail stuff there, and then they would keep you, right? You got to do what you're supposed to do, but the only person get, and I was like, I embrace that, right? I'm only going to leave if I want to leave. So, I'm in what they call a Nobel Hell Week class. I think it's only been 2 of them, one in the 1960s, and then my class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we started with 28. We started with 117 people. And then by the time we got to Hell Week, which is the first 4 weeks of training, you have 2 weeks of prep training, and you have 4 weeks. It's kind of like the Rangers, where you go through that. Yeah, Rangers have the same thing, but it's just a lot longer.
Yeah, it's a horrible
marathon. Yeah, we sleep though. We have 1 week of no sleep. You guys have like the entire course of no sleep, right? So it's a lot more painful to be the Ranger thing. I think most of our guys go. You Rangers start with a bunch of people too, and then you come back and you're like, there's only like a few of us left.
Yeah, I think it has like my squad got disbanded in the first phase because there was only me and one other person who made it through. It was insane.
Yeah, it is, right? So it's like, what makes you? A kid asked me a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, a friend of mine said, "Hey, can you talk to this kid about going to SEAL training?" And I was like, "Yeah, but if he's asking me, he's not. If he's asking me to help him, then he's not a person that should try out for the program." And so I'm not trying to be mean. I said, but most of the people that are successful in that type of in special operations are not. They may seek your advice on something, but they're not asking you to help them get to the program.
Yeah.
Right. And so I said to the guy, I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" He says, "I want to become a Navy SEAL." I said, "Okay, yeah, but what are you doing this weekend?" He says, "Well, I'm not doing anything." I said, "Okay." So, I went through a bunch of questions. I said, "What's the longest hike you've ever done?" He goes, 3 miles and almost killed me. I said, "Do you have a friend that's a hiker?" He goes, "Yeah." So what's the longest hike he's done? And he goes, "He's got like 10 miles. I said, "Elevation?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Call that guy up and ask him to take you on a hike this weekend, and then you try to keep up with him." I said, "If you finish it, great. If you don't finish it, you shouldn't go. You shouldn't even try for the program." He's like, "What?" I said, "Man, the people in special operations are always looking for things they can't do and then achieving those. It's just a natural thing. Like, I'm going to go for, I'm going to run for an hour. How long is that? Well, it's an hour. Well, how fast are you going to go? I don't know. Depends how I feel, right? It's just like, depends how I feel. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to lift. I'm going to always add more weight. I'm going to try to do more push-ups. I'm going to try. That's what they're trying to do." And I said, when you go on a run, I said, "Look, this is the thing that will set you apart is that, I'm trying not to cuss. Just like sailor's mouth. Okay, when you go on a run, I said, how fast do you run? He goes, I run about an 8-minute mile. I said, I would never go, I'm running an 8-minute mile. I said, well, you know how fast I run? Until I can catch the next person that's in front of me.
Yep.
Right? I'm going to run that guy down because
Yep.
I'm going to take their energy and I'm going to run past them. You know, I'm not going to get behind them and relax. I'm going to pass. I want them to know that I beat them. They saw me in a parking lot. They took off 10 minutes before me, and now I'm past them. That's how I know I'm good at what I do. That's how I know I'm pushing myself, right? Because you're playing games in your head. I said, if you're not like challenging yourself when you run or anything, then you're not preparing yourself for what's going to happen, right? And I'm like, it's not self-talk. It's like, I'm going to run that guy down. I'm going to catch him before I get to that pole. And then you're working towards that. And to pass that guy and go, who else is out there? Who's next, right? And this is a game you play with yourself.
Yep.
If you're not willing to do that, then you're not willing to push yourself. Because I said, because you want to become an officer, people are going to want you to lead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't lead if you're always like, well, you know, tomorrow I'm gonna like that. I'm like, man, I'm not telling you can't go to SEAL program. I'm just saying you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
Because all the people I know were always running people down. And now this whole thing goes back to me at SEAL Team 6 is let's run, let's go. It's a race. You know, you're two guys together. It's a race, right? You ever go with some? You ever watch like I got my grandson. I take him to 24-hour fitness. They got a swim program there, and I have to walk through the entire gym with him. And the first thing he does is he wants to jump on one of the machines. I'm like, no, we're not here for that. I'm like, he's 5 years old, and I kind of smirk because I spend a lot of time with my grandson. Like, I want to work out before I go swimming. I'm like, you can't work out. This is not your equipment, but they're doing it. I'm like, yeah, but you know, we're gotta, and this is like a year. We've been doing this for a year. He walks in, first machine, he wants to jump on, he wants to get on it. And, you know, I can do what they're doing. No, you can't. You got to go back to your swim class. Your swim class is back in the back. And every time I walk in the gym with him, that's everything he does. He wants to get on all the equipment. He wants to use it. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you can't. I didn't teach him that. Right? That's something he's been exposed to, and it's in his DNA to be always pushing himself. Right? He wants to run. He wants to race. He wants to climb. He wants to do all these things. And I think you see it. And on my end, because I recognize it, is how do I develop that to be the person he can be that's always going to be that way, always going to be that way, and with some compassion, because that's another part of it as well. But yeah, man, join the military. And when I tell people that's what you need to do, a lot of times they're like, well, I'll start tomorrow. Like, well, then you're not going to do it. Right. And the same with business. I did the same thing with business. I speak to these groups of warehouse workers or their supervisors or their the people that C-suite. It's the same thing for me. Like, leadership is leadership, right?
Yeah.
You got to speak truth to power, right? We all know that. If you can't tell your boss what's going wrong in a manner that they would understand and what's not drawn out and it's not personal, then how can you lead your people? And how you expect them to come to you and talk to you about something's wrong if you can't articulate it? Right. If you can't open the door for them to, and what is another thing that, and I don't know if you believe in this open door policy thing, but I always tell people, it's like, yo, so you have nothing else to do but wait around for them to tell you what to do. Then how are you taking care of your people? Because 90% of what you do comes from the 10% of the person above you.
Yeah.
The CEO says, do this, right? And he's doing all this other stuff. But 10% of what he wants you to do, 10% of what he's passing on to you becomes your 90% of what you do on a day-to-day basis. And then you'll do your 10%. Then you'll pass your 10% down to the people below you, and that becomes their 90%. And that's how it works. That's how commanders' intents work. If you're not able to do what the person above you tells you to do, then you're not going to be successful because you're not on this, you're not aligned, you're not synchronized. We need to be I think the Rangers are like this, the SEALs are like this, the Delta guys are like this. The PJs, everybody's like this. The CEO or a team leader tells you, this is what I want you guys to do, and it's always this much, but it's 90% of what you're doing. And then that 10%, you as a leader, and you do pass that down, and you make sure they understand. If they don't understand what you're saying, then you're probably saying it wrong, because you got to meet them where they're at as far as language. And the bad thing about what I say is, like, look, maybe some people shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
You got to play her out of position. There's a kid today, right? I'm working with the Navy and doing a program. I can't mention it, but we were out doing a FTX last night.
Mm.
And I was talking to, and I said, I don't like dropping kids on the last day. I don't think it's a good idea. I think because I've been gone for like a couple weeks from the program, and I said, I just don't, I don't particularly care for it. I think it should be done earlier. We're good people, we're professionals. We know what the issues are, what the problems are. Like, well, give him a shot. So I go, okay, I'll do the medical for you guys. And then I go down there and I'm like, oh shit, he doesn't know anything. Like he knows nothing. You know,
wow.
that he goes to the med bag. There's a, how long does it take to put a tourniquet on? Oh, it takes about under a minute, right? We know that your blood loss and you TCCC, you know that this person has X amount of time to get off the X. Okay, so as an individual that you only have X amount of time to put that tourniquet. Once I realized that, and the scene is safe, and in this particular incident, the scene's not safe because it's an explosion in the engineering space. You got to get off the X, so you got to grab it and go. And he is like looking through his bag, and he doesn't have a flashlight on. There's smoke in there, and he's just operating. And you've seen kids like that before. They're operating completely.
100%.
And you're like, you got to get off the X. I'm talking to him. You got to get off the X. And I said, I can't be. I use the more colorful words. I can't be your voice to tell you what to do because then you're going to rely on me only to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's up to you to figure out what it is. I'm going to tell you one thing: get him off the X right now, and then you figure out from here. 45 minutes later, he is still not able to function. When we got done, I said, "Yeah, this guy's got to go." And I said, "Look, the fact of the matter is." They're like, well, maybe he can be retrained. I said, it's too much for him. I don't know. I don't know if he's on the spectrum, and kind of joking, but I said at some point, normally people would be like, just give me a little bit of a leeway, and then I'll become better. And then as a leader, you can't allow your sympathy for a person. You can empathize with them, but your sympathy, I feel sorry for you. I'm going to let you. That doesn't work. That has no. You've been in combat. You can't sympathize.
Nope.
But you let this guy get through because it's going to cost other lives, right? You
Speaking straight fire right now.
You can't. So yeah, it's as bad as you feel about it. It's like you got to go. It's for the benefit of the team. And I'm not sending some kid out to the fleet. They board some ship and this guy freezes. Not going to happen. I said, you guys can do what you want, but my conscience is clear on this.
Yeah.
It's 100% clear that this kid should not be here.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, you said, I said this shouldn't happen at this point, but I just got back. So you guys knew this. And I started asking questions. I said, when did he have a problem? Well, he failed on the first day. What about his test in the first week? They go, he failed that too. They're like, well, why did somebody just drop him back then? Well, we thought he'd get better. He's not going to get better.
Yeah.
Right. He might get better if you give him and I think he was given the right tools, but there's some people, they just can't get it. I'd like you to say everybody wants to be special operations. Like, well, everybody wants to be special operations, but not everybody can be special operations.
Yeah.
Right. That's why there's a failure rate. Right.
Yeah.
And then when you lower the standards, those people coming into your organization are affected, but the organization is affected by that standard that's been lowered. Because now you got to retrain this person that should already know this stuff. You should already know this.
Yeah, it's like thinking of like just straight number base is that 1% of our population serves in the military, something similar to that.
Yeah.
And then 1% of that is special operations. And I'm thinking like the whole spectrum. But even less than that is like tier 1 level operations. And it takes a certain person. And I think there's definitely reoccurring themes like in younger adolescents that kind of like mold them into like that hardened warrior or the lion that you like to talk about or that mindset. But I love that concept of like a player out of position. Like everyone wants to do these things because it's sexy. It sounds awesome. Like I want to go do these things. Right. But when they're actually put into a stressful environment, you either sink or swim, fight or flight. And I've seen it too, of like soldiers like clearly not engaging an enemy and just completely froze
Right.
And that level of indecisiveness can lead to your son or your brothers around you getting hurt or killed. So
Yeah.
100%.
I call it decision paralysis.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. The decision paralysis is in combat. They just can't, which way or what do I do? What do I say? And a person
Yeah.
that's in tune with what they're doing will know what to do. Right.
Yeah.
No one wants to die, but you can't be catastrophizing about what if I get hit? What if I get shot? It's like,
Yeah. You just got to go.
yeah, you got to go. I tell kids when I teach this one course, I said, this isn't the business stuff because that'd be crazy. I was like, if you're in a knife fight, you're gonna get cut. You're in a fist fight, you're gonna get hit. You're in a gunfight, you're gonna get shot. So that going in the door, right? That walking through the door, that this is possibly gonna happen. You're shooting at them, they're gonna shoot back, right?
Yep.
It's so part. They're trying to kill you, trying to kill them. It's just who's gonna do it first, right? Can you do suppressive fire? You can't. But even these kids today, you go, hey, you need to do suppressive fire. They're like, well, they're not there anymore. I'm like, that's not what suppressive fire is. Suppressive fire so they don't come around the corner and shoot you.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, just continue to shoot the damn gun. Right? It's like, no, I don't. I'm like, bro, let me tell you something. The bad guy's waiting for you to stop. That's called a lull. And the bad guy's waiting for you to stop, and they're going to come out and they're going to shoot you. They're not going to be like, oh, wait, let's see, their backs are against me. they're going to shoot you. So you can't, you gotta be proactive in what you're doing in a combat situation. But this is in everything you do in your life. It's just you got to prepare for anything that's going to happen. Suppressive fire, following up, doing things like that. Those are all things that I think are translated to the civilian sector. But you can't teach that. I would like to say you can teach the foundation of the methodology behind it, but it's a natural instinct. Like if I told you contact right, you would be like, okay, I'm getting my guns on, looking for my target, scanning, you're gonna get right. But some people contact right, like, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. Right? Or if have you ever been a passenger in a car and you've been in the right side and the person's looking, the person's driving, you go clear right, and they don't even look, they just drive, they trust you.
Yeah, 100%. I still do that with my wife, and she looks at me like, you're clear right, go.
Yeah, but most people don't. But that's a trust thing, right? Like I'm automatically always here looking out for you, no matter what. Clear right, clear left. It's just it's. I don't know if it's just ingrained in special operations guys, but definitely there's a method to our madness of getting things done. But I think that, people would disagree and say, well, you can train people, and I don't think so. I think. If you train a leader, if something bad happens, that's what you trained. Because there's no way for you to cover everything they need to know in an unknown situation. And that's what combat is, right? Combat is you're going into an unknown situation and you don't know the outcome. And you're not predicting the outcome, but you're going to make the outcome to what you want it to be. And you lose people. Yeah. So that person that you're putting in that position's got to know, what do I need to do to take care of my people, right? If you want to bring everybody back, then you're going to be risk averse. But being risk averse will cause that same thing to happen, But if you're looking at I'm telling somebody, but we're talking about this the other day. I was talking about a move and shoot, right? Leapfrogging. And they're like, what's the purpose? They were like, well, what if they move on you? And I'm like, that's the whole point. Yeah. And once you set your base, that moving team is they're supposed to move fast enough. The OODA loop, right? The OODA loop. So they're going to do the same thing you're going to do, but you need to be moving fast enough and being aware enough of what that is, so you can capture them or kill them before they kill you. And I said, it's life or death. So your people have to move. You only have, I was telling this kid this is a kid I was talking to. Like, you only have so much ammo. It's not a video game. You only have you may have 200 rounds per person. And then and that's for your entire mission. And you get caught off guard and you get to some ambush or something like that. So you only have 200 rounds. So whatever per group, there's 10 people, it's 2,000. No, it's 2,000 rounds. Like, no, it's not 2,000 rounds. It's 200 rounds. It's your ammo. It's not the combined. It's what you have and the team has. And of course, some people will be like, just fucking loading and shooting, but other people will not fire on their guns. right? And they go, who's got ammo left? And so I got some. It's like, you got all your ammo left? But then you know that that's a weak point on your flank. And instantly as an officer or chief, I'm going to be like, okay, this guy, this is where the weak part of my not field of fire, but yeah, my field of fire. That's a weak point of it. Now I got to deal with him plus the enemy moving. And now I'm automatically going to adjust what I'm doing without thinking about it. I'm going to adjust where I'm going to put that person over here, and then have these people cover that. And I'm going to tell that my number one guy, my pipe hitter, to go do X, Y, Z. I said, this is what happens when as a leader, you know what you're doing and how you want things to happen. If you don't, you have to think, let me think about it, and I'll use an example for probably a bad example, but Luttrell's thing, they're all sitting around talking about, this is from the movie, so I don't actually know. This is based on what I've heard from word of mouth and SEAL teams. Is what do we do with the, what do we do with the sheep herder? And what I even thought, I'm like, I should have killed him. I think that's terrible. It's like, okay, so we know what happened. Do you still think it's terrible?
Yeah.
We know that the team was killed. We know that they went and got the Taliban. We know that he had to escape with his knife, and then they embarrassed the SEAL teams.
Yeah.
So if you could flash forward and see what was going to happen, would you still think that killing them would be wrong? And then and if you think it's wrong, then maybe you're in the wrong job.
Yeah, not to include like the single loss of special operations, like to try to rescue them, of like all the pain that kind of went through
kilos. Yeah, it's so. I think, and again, dwelling on, there's a bunch of them that are like that. But so you look at them, and that's what you do after actions, and go, let's not do that again, because that costs a bunch of our lives. Like, you're out there, you do what you have to do, and this happened with Bravo 20. I think it's Bravo 20. It happened with the British, or at the first Iraqi war. They did the exact same thing. It's like we didn't learn from it then.
Yeah.
Where they saw the sheep herder kid, and the kid ran around the Iraqis and said, "Hey, there's army people on the other side." And people were, back then, they were second guessing themselves. Like, we're supposed to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'm not a bloodthirsty kill somebody, but you got to be able to see what, I know people like, what's your morality? What? I'm like, my team's first. And then a lot has to do with how I think that, and this is further back down the road, how I think society is going to look at the SEAL teams. The Navy had the RIB, the Mark V. They had engine problems before they left.
Yeah.
The Iraqis captured, or the Iranians captured it. Did you remember that story?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, the boat had engine problems. They decided to go anyway, and they didn't use the GPS, and they got off course, and then the fucking boat died, and then they gave up. Right? They gave up. And people were, the officer was like, well, we don't want to fight them. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to fend them off, but we don't want to shoot the guns in, because they were loaded. They had ammo. They had 50 cals working on the boat. They didn't sabotage it. They just, oh, here you go. We don't want to die. Like, maybe you shouldn't be in the military. Right?
I'll never forget, like, this kind of like reminds me of a story. And so it all goes to like this point, is that people want to join the military and they want to do these really exquisite things, but they don't understand the sacrifice and sometimes like split level decisions that you're able to make that most people can't even comprehend. And it's like a symphony of destruction, like to quote Megadeth, right? Like it's a hard thing, but you have people put in places of leadership, industry, or in the military that develop this plan. The plan is their baby, and they fight the plan versus fighting the enemy. The plan is just a 70% solution for you to fire, maneuver, and close with and destroy the enemy, either in the civilian world, knock down your targets, or actually on the objective. But I'll never forget when I was in Afghanistan, I had an interpreter with me, and there was actually Taliban informants within this platoon that we were trying to train, but they're out on this outpost. And I was going around as this young lieutenant doing my monthly property accountability of trying to get all the serial numbers for these silly generators that are spread out all over southern Afghanistan. And I come out there, and one of the Taliban, basically informants in that platoon, said that I was coming to take the generator and take all their food. So they were just in a line, and they had their guns drawn at me. And I was like, okay, you want to do this? I dropped the ramp out. I walked out there. I confronted all of them, and I had every one of my 4 strikers
Yeah.
point the Mark 15s and the 50 cals at them. Is like, if you shoot at me, I will annihilate you all. Just know that, like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You may kill me, but every single one of you will die. But that level of mentality
Yeah.
isn't made for everyone, and war
No.
is not a good thing. I wish we didn't have war, but
Yeah.
I thank God for people like you that are willing to go to those places and
And you.
do bad things to bad people.
And you.
Yeah,
I mean, you did a lot. But I think that the enemy needs to understand that, you fuck around and find out.
yeah, I love that little. That's a math equation. I use
Yeah.
that all the time at work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like but I don't think that I think you go to finishing school. Like, I think Rangers is a finishing school for
Yeah,
you being a special operation guy. You walk out of there, you know that they can put you in a situation where you can make shit happen right away, and then you just become better and better and better and better and better and better, because you're professionally, you're gonna always push yourself. Whereas, when people graduate boot camp, they're like, "That's it, I'm done. I don't have to be hard. I don't have to do anything
I'm a T.
more." Yeah, no, it's gonna get my rank and take my test. I'm advanced. Like, no, no, that's not how you should advance. I remember talking to one of my friends. We had an E5, high moral standard, good kid. Um, and then we had some E6s that were there. Navy E6s are petty officers, and if you got E5s are petty officer, but the first classes are petty officer. Petty officer E6 is a petty officer first class, and E5 is a petty officer second class. And we had 3 E6s that were running the team, and this is when I was a civilian. And I said, if you can, I put that E5 in charge. He goes, I can't do that. I'm like, why not? Because those other 3 idiots are idiots, right? They have to go to him to ask him anyway. So why not just? And I remember the shitstorm that he went under because they wanted to put they're like, you can't do that. It'll make them feel bad about themselves. And I was like, well, maybe they should do their fucking job.
Yeah, it's not about your feelings.
Yeah, it's not about your feelings. This guy's going to lead people. So he was a shadow LPO, which is leading petty officer, for about 9 months till we got somebody in that knew what the hell was going on. But he's like, those 3, I'm like, how the hell those 3 guys even make E6 in this field? Not SEAL team. This was a Navy thing. But that's the problem we have, is that people, they get advanced and they put in these leadership positions and they don't know how to lead. And you're just talking about a regular work environment. You're not talking combat environment. Combat would be different. And that doesn't happen that often, but it does happen, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it happens. But for the most part, people that are in combat, that they do very well at what they do.
I can't say the company's name, but it's a pretty large company that focuses on AI and all this stuff. I had a meeting with them last week, sitting down in DC, and they wanted to show us this new technology that they're developing. And I sit down there. First question I asked them is like, "Hey, if you do business with SOCOM or the DoD, we will use this to kill bad people. And as a business, are you okay with that?" Because I've had multiple different companies, I can't say their name, say, "Hey, we want to sell you these things, but you can't use them to target and prosecute." I was like, "Well, why would you sell it to the military if that's the case?" Right? Like, it's not like we're gardeners and we're creating crops. We are a gardener in a way, to fertilize the soil. But when I said that, yeah, when I said that, I just looked around the room, because I knew, like, these, like, not a lack of a better term, but people who've never been challenged, they're like shocked that I would even ask this person that question. But I mean, it's a valid question. I need to know up front, are you willing to do that? Or if not, then our meeting's over.
Yeah. Well, there people rebelled that a couple of the tech companies, because they were using it. The military was using it to, and I'm like, well, the reason you're able to say the things you're saying because of the military.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to help them become, you don't want to, we're trying to reduce our casualties and get our mission accomplished faster. So whatever you can do to help us with that will be better. It's not the number of people, it's the technology that gets us ahead of the other groups. And our enemies now outnumber us. So what kind of technology can we use to level the playing field? And you got to tell you that if the presence of mind is if you look like you're a badass, that's half of it.
Yeah, half of it.
More than half of it. It's like yeah.
That's why I keep getting tattoos, because it just makes me look harder.
Yeah. Hey, have you seen the new Army commercial?
Oh yeah, it's awesome, by the way.
I was blown away. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. When you joined the Navy, if you saw that commercial before you would have joined the Navy, would that have committed you to join the Army?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Either one.
I love it.
The one with the sergeant major talking, and the other one with the guy carrying away. Since I think he says it's harder to kill a tough guy or a big guy or something like that. You ever seen that one?
No, I don't think so.
There's another one where he's deadlifting. It's an Army commercial. He's in the gym working out, and I think he's deadlifting. Like it looks like 1,000 pounds. I think it's like 750. And then he's huge, and he's just picking things up. And I think he says it's hard to kill somebody that's strong as me or something. It's something. It's not. The term he uses is acceptable to television, but it is something like it's hard to kill somebody when you're so strong or something like it goes like Army strong. But it's amazing. But the Sergeant Major one was the first one I saw that they put out in December, and I sent it out to a bunch of my Navy friends. I was like, if I'd have saw this one, I want to join the Army now. I think it's badass. It is absolutely 100% badass. It's like the Marine Corps used to have the only the few or whatever it is now.
Yeah, the few, the proud, the Marines.
Yeah. Right. It used to be badass commercials. So, because this is how I am. I saw that commercial and I was like, well, what did the Army, what did the Navy do? And what did the Army do? I'm saying, what did the Navy do? What did the Marine Corps do? And I went to the Marine Corps commercial and I was like, what the hell? Because they are, they typically release them around the same time. And I was like, what? It looks like a video game for Call of Duty.
Yeah,
like it's completely different. Like it's like the Army and the Marine Corps switched positions.
It's funny too, because like I'm actively in the role, and recruiting last year, the Marine Corps crushed it and the Army was sucking. And it was because the culture that was being stood up like from these commercials is like, hey, come join. There's all these jobs that you can do. And it was switching the paradigm that what the Army can do for you versus the Marine Corps was like, what will you do for the Marine Corps? Because it's a privilege. It's not a right. And I feel like the Army is starting to shift to that mindset, because being in the military, it is a privilege. It's not a right. If you don't have the standards, if you're too lazy, if you don't have the work ethic, it doesn't matter. Like you'll get kicked out. I've had to kick soldiers out for that exact same reason.
I tell you that if the Army, if that commercial, the one with the Sergeant Major talking, it's like 3 minutes. If you see it, have you seen it yet?
Is that the Green Beret one? I saw the special. Yeah, that I shared that on my Instagram. Like that fired me up. That was, I mean, that's
you're already in the Army and it fired you up.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, that's not that special. But I was fired up about it. I was like, that is very, 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 very good. And if that's like the Tom Cruise movies, Top Gun, right? So people see it and they get fired up about it and they join the military. That's why Tom Cruise gets all those planes, because people see it and they go, I want to be like Tom, and I'm not qualified, but I'll do something else to help the mission. And that's good. That's a marketing thing. But that particular commercial is, I remember when you said Green Beret, I was like, yeah, it's a Green Beret commercial. When I saw it, I thought it was just an Army commercial, right? It's done that well.
Yeah.
That it's an Army commercial, but it is about the Green Beret. You're right. It describes Green Beret.
Yeah, we definitely need like that team of teams approach, like as a country, and with our allies. Like if we want to continue to shape this world to be a freedom loving, open world, right, that has the dream of like, hey, I want to go create a podcast, and then you can. Well, that comes at a cost, and we all have to work collectively together, a team of teams,
right?
Because we're more powerful together.
I agree with that. And then the larger your presence, the less likely there is something to happen.
Yeah.
If you don't have like the first thing they tell you, like in my teach tactics, I said when you walk in a room, they have to know that you mean fucking business. They can't be, I'm going to grab that gun over there. Yeah, you can go ahead and grab that gun. But when your muscle moves, I'm going to shoot you. Right? Because that's intent. And so, but you're not. And I tell the kids, it's like, you're not thinking, is that intent or not? Like, it's intent. capability, opportunity, intent. And so you're talking about legal precedents as well. I said, but you do not want to get in a situation when you're second guessing yourself in a combat environment or whether or not you're going to shoot that person. And they're like, what about handcuffing? I said, you don't want to be in a situation where you're debating on whether or not you're going to shoot that person, because handcuffing is something you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. You can do that. No problem at all. But it's all the other stuff that your brain's saying, don't worry about that. We're going to handcuff him. And then you wind up, you can't get him handcuffed. He takes your gun and he shoots you. We have a couple guys that are pipe hitters I work with. And you go to handcuff them and you haven't given them direct, they're just waiting. And they're giving you signals. They're breathing heavy. They're angry with you. They're reluctant to follow your commands. And as soon as you walk up to them and you stow your weapon, they're going to go ahead and they're going to come at you. I'm like, so that going in the door, what are you doing with your presence? What are you thinking? Because that's what it is. It's what you're thinking that determines whether or not they believe what you're going to do. And they're like, I don't understand. Yeah, I know you don't understand. So I'm trying to tell you, don't think about anything else but killing that person when you walk in, and then you can control that anger, that aggression.
Yeah.
Right. But they need to know you mean business. Like when a law enforcement person pulls you over, and I just give them my ID. I'm like, why is that? Because I don't want him to get mad or shoot at me or something. Like, exactly. That's what you need to have. So why don't we fuck with bouncers when we go to bars? Because like they're to kick my ass. I go, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. He's not there just because he's a big guy. He's there because he's big, he's intimidating, and you know that he's going to come after you if you do something wrong. So does that work? And they go, oh, I had to go to the nightclub.
It goes back to like what Jordan Peterson said of learn to be a monster, then control it. And I really think that like society throughout the ages, regardless of generation, right, like has that same mentality. Yeah. Strong people become monsters and they learn to control it. And then that's what makes a great leader. I really believe that, like the empathy, not the sympathy that we talked about, but holding people accountable to a standard, which is uncomfortable. But leadership is not a popularity contest. I'll never forget a sergeant major telling me that it's not about likership, Josh. It's about leadership. You're not going to always be popular, and that shouldn't be your barometer. And that just stuck with me.
Yeah. Well, that's why you have peers that you can talk to.
Yeah.
Right. And not necessarily about your problems, but just talk in general. Or it's a safe space to talk about those. I can't believe I said safe space, but it is a space for you to talk about things, what's happening to our vernacular and in the world.
Well, I keep calling Liberty brag, and it's definitely brag now.
Yeah.
So let's take it to after you've gotten out of the Navy, right? Like doing like the entrepreneurial stuff of Trident Coaching companies, becoming an author. Like, what was that transition like? Getting out of the military, doing something so intense as being a SEAL in SEAL Team 6, and then joining the civilian world.
It was. I think the transition. We all have transitions. It was probably 3 years. I tried a lot of things, man. A lot of things I thought that people would want from me. Anything but shooting. I didn't want to do weapons, but I did do weapons training. I didn't think that I should share what I knew about weapons training or combat with civilians. So I got a part-time job, and I still have it actually, working tactics to stay up on board with tactics, defensive tactics. I did that later. That's in 2000. I retired in 2005. In 2007, I started my own company. I was doing, well, let me back up a little bit. I had been working with Sony PlayStation on a video game. I was told to do while I was in the military. You know how that works, right? Help them make sure it works out.
You did that in the military?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. I thought you were out.
Yeah, no, I was active duty, and I didn't get paid because I was told to do it. You know how they give you a program, they say, hey, run this program. And they're like, can we use your photo? And I'm like, well, I don't want to use my photo. And they're like, went to my boss and go, we want to use this photo for the thing. It'll be helpful recruiting and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, they were like, you're gonna let them use your photo. And you're gonna let you use your image is what they said. And I said, okay. You do what I didn't want to do it, but they said, yeah, we want you to do it because of recruiting. I was like, okay, it makes sense to me. So for from 2001 to 2005, I was in the military working with Sony PlayStation for the video game, or the
Yeah.
PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. When I got out, that's when I asked for, what's the fee for doing all this? And that's when they started paying me. So I got paid for 2 years, traveled around the world with them, did all their concerts or whatever you call those things, conventions.
Yeah.
So from 2005 to 2007, I did that with Sony. And then I did a thing with Sony called SOCOM Hell Week, which is basically they bring video game kids to a little Hell Week. It's nuts. There's only a couple of kids I thought were good. A couple of those kids actually went to Buds. There were kids that wanted to go to Buds. There were kids that wanted to play the video game. They did both. They played the video game and they wanted to go to Buds. So Sony didn't want kids that are going to Buds that wanted to go to SEAL training to do the program, because they didn't want to be recruiting for SEAL teams, even though it was for SEAL teams. So when I went to the interview with the kids, I'd be like, hey, don't mention anything about if you're going to become a SEAL candidate going to the Buds. And I said, if you're going to be a SEAL candidate, you shouldn't do this because people are going to see it. And then when you get to SEAL teams, they're going to hammer you because they're like, why are you on television? That happened to a couple of kids. 2007, I started doing these video games. So that was 2009. And then I ran across a guy who I had worked with on a movie, a producer. They're part of the Young Presidents Organization, YPO. And he said, why don't you do that for civilians? Like, do what? He goes, SOCOM Hell Week. Can you do that for leadership? I go, well, that. I said, well, Lance, that's all it is leadership. It's the stuff that I do that is leadership. I said, it doesn't come across that way because these kids don't know anything about leadership. But most of the time I'm talking to them is about what leadership does, what team building does, communication, because you put that in a program. And I go, yeah, but it's going to be like 70. I think I told them 70. I said 90 hours. I need 90 hours and they can't sleep. And so who's going to pay for this? Because I'll get guys to pay for it. So you're going to get you're going to get rich guys to go through this program. He goes, yeah. All right. So he put it out there. The first year I did it, I had 60 millionaires come to the program. Wow. And, it was good. It was hard because I told him, I said, it's going to be hard as it needs to be because you guys need to know that you got your money's worth. You're paying for a program that's like a SEAL program called Leadership Under Fire. Yeah. It's a scaled down version of what SEAL training is, but I'm going to give you all the lessons of why we do the things we do, or at least ones I expected, why we do log PT, why we put you in a why. I will tell you the why. And then, but your why is different than my why. Yep. So you have to understand what your why is. That's going to help me become better. My why is because I need to do X, Y, Z. Your why is, I don't know why you're here, really. So, the first class was 60 people. And he goes, you can do this once a year. And I was like, I think I can. So I built the company around these once a year programs. And then I started, hey, I could probably do smaller programs with these companies for their teams and squad. And that's how it started. I basically started taking what all my knowledge, and then hiring people that were actually the people that work for me, except for one person, are all military. She's a Olympic trainer. She was an Olympian. She got a bronze for, I think, rowing. But everybody else, she had 20 years. And so my entire coaching team are people that are prior military because they understand what I'm talking about whenever I say anything. Yeah. It's a lot easier to translate. And they have their degrees, their PhDs, their master's programs and such. And so we go, this is what our program, this is who we are. And it was SOTG, Special Operations Training Group, and then went into Trident. And I had I learned a lot along the way. And now we have clients where we train everything from the warehouse worker to the executive team. And so we basically, we need a lot of information from them and how they do things. And sometimes people don't want to change. Yeah. There's this thing where, and this has happened a lot. We're training a group of Harvard graduates, and we had Yale graduates. And the Harvard graduates didn't want us to share certain things with the Yale graduates. It's like, What?
That's silly.
Yeah. And they were clumped together as a group. And my job, is to break that. Right. I see it happening and I got to come in and break it. I got to break that kind of tribal mindset. Like we only do things. You work better when you do it when a Harvard guy says it, but not with a Yale guy. So that's not why we're here. We're here because we want to see what we can do as individuals, not about what you're. And I get that you don't want to fail as a Harvard guy. You want to fail as a Yale guy. But at the end of the day, you're failing who you are right now. You're holding back, and we don't want you to hold back. And I would tell them that our whole thing is that for you not to hold back when you're doing the program. And then they would be like, "Oh, I get it now. Not to hold back." And say, "Yeah, because you're holding back."
I think
So,
that would be like one of the hardest things to do of you running your Trident Coaching Consulting company, but trying to translate some
mhm,
of the leadership lessons you learned through the military
mhm,
in the lens of a civilian so they fully understand that. So I love the concept of you like hiring like all these pipe hitters right around you, like
yeah,
people in the military, so they understand the same acronyms, they have the same work ethic and
yeah,
drive.
yeah.
How do you connect those principles in the civilian world that someone who hasn't had the same hardships that we do?
We have to dial it down. I rely heavily on my team because
Yeah.
I'm like, this is what we need to build. And they're like, well, that's not going to work, Rob, because this is where they are. And that in turn, just so you know that because I did understand it, but I understand how much more now
Mm.
is how you develop people, how you train people. Is when I went back and got my master's in psychology. It's got a
That's why I
teaching.
was going to ask, why did you go? It was 2017, right? That you got your master's in
No,
psychology.
no, no. It's recent. It was like a month ago. I started in
Wow.
2017. I started in 2000. Yeah, I started in 2017 going for my degree, and 2018, and then I just recently got my master's in psychology, or
Oh,
marriage
that's
family.
awesome, man.
Yeah, and then also LPCC, which is licensed. I like a career counselor.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "What?" I said, I'm leading people in their lives. I said, I need to know I need to know these things are building blocks for people.
Mm.
And that's kind of in recent, like I said, saying recently, it's helped me connect because I can understand how they think now, right? Not
Yeah.
just oh, in the military we did this. I can take what I learned in the military and I can take what I know about people and developing people from psychology from birth, and then tie those things together
Mm.
and then help people with some cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
I use a little DBT, which is dialectic behavioral therapy, when I'm teaching with them in one of the courses, right? So I don't just come in there and you're like, hey, this is what you should do. I come in and go, let's figure it all out, and I'll do it table by table, right? So there's 7 tables there. There's 5 people at each table, and then throughout the day, I'll basically do some psychology stuff with them at that table, to figure out what how they're what are they missing as far as leaders go. Because a
Mm.
lot of times people think leadership is about signing the check and doing
Yep.
the performance evaluations, and I'm like that. No,
It's a manager.
that's a manager. You're managing
Yeah.
check. Yeah. So it's about what do your people think of you when you walk into a room?
Mm.
What would they say about you? Not that it matters what they would say about you, but what are you projecting to them?
Mm.
Right? Is it confidence? I went to a warehouse recently, and this guy was very impressive. He was told, "Hey, you're going to meet some people, and then give them a tour of this facility." And so I'm a coach. I mean, going to one of my people, and he gives us a 90-minute, like really, really good tour. And he said, I thought you guys were vendors, like to ship your stuff here. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we do your leadership training. He goes, oh, I wish I'd have known that. I'm like, no, I think it's perfect because we got to see everything we wanted to see and nothing was hidden from us. And so when I went in and spoke to them, that same group,
That's a good TTP. I would
yeah,
do that every time.
yeah. So it was good because I'm going to go to one in about a week and a half. I'm going to go up there early and go through the warehouse. And so it was great because I got their language, how they talk to each other. And then when I spoke, he's like, this guy is a real deal then. So I got
Mm.
buy-in from him because I went to the
Yeah.
warehouse there for a long time. And I could talk about the zones. I could talk about the people. I could talk about the hiring problems because I saw all of it when I was there. And I thought it was good. And that's what you do as a leader as well. Is you got to get down and figure out who am I talking to?
Yeah.
Who are the people I'm talking to? And I feel great about he was the person they attached to him. He goes, I wish I'd have known. I'm like, no, you did perfect, man. You were great. You were absolutely 100% great. And I'm going to use some of the stuff you told me when I talked to them. I told him when I saw him at the He goes, oh shit, you're the guy that's here. I'm like, yeah, I'm the guy. Because I never had anybody do that. I said, yeah, but because I said we need to know who we're talking to. We just can't get up there and just like, well, look, watch you pull a rabbit out of my hat. Like, no, we want to help you. He goes, yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, I was like, yeah, no, we're here to help you, and everything I'm going to talk to you about is stuff I learned from you. So he's like, well, so I may call on you, just so you know. He goes, oh, no, you have no problem at all. It's like, because I would be like, hey, this guy, blah blah blah, and then tell me about what you think what the problems are. And I go, yeah, it's fine. HR people don't care. I mean, they do care, but if you got an issue, a problem, speak truth to power. You can do that in this environment, right? Because you told me there's an issue, but I can't fix that. But I'll help you talk to them about what that issue is. That the problem. You've been there 19 years. Of course, you know what's wrong. Right? If you're hiring the wrong people and they don't listen, and you keep losing people, you got a 30% rate of people. What do you call it? Attrition. How do you get that down to 10%? Well, hire the right people. Who are the right people? HR doesn't know who the right people are.
Yeah.
They just know that you need a person, right? Who is the perfect person for the job?
It goes back to the story of where you're sharing that tryout with that young man, right? Like it's all about like culture. I really do believe that. Like if you can hire the right people for the right jobs, then you'll have a phenomenal organization.
Right. Culture is what makes things happen. It's not your environment. Right. And I don't know your environment, but I know I'm not a product of my environment. I'm about a product of my culture, my mom, and make sure we got things done. And you can have that. You can have culture and environment, but your environment will destroy you. Your culture will help you.
Yeah.
Right. Where I went to school had a great culture. Excellence, drive forward, always be somebody, move forward and stuff. Whereas, oh shit, hold on a second.
I have to make sure too, like, I tend to I could have conversations with you all day long. So you got to tell me when we need to stop recording.
No, I forgot I was supposed to do something at 7:30. I completely forgot about it. I'll see if he texts me back.
Yeah.
Okay. He just wanted to know if I was alive.
Now I'm filming this podcast with this fired up major right now.
I see you on this podcast. I'm like, what the? I'm like, no, everything's good though. I mean, I as I get older, people say, why don't you just retire? And I'm like, oh, why? Okay, and do what? Why would I think I'm in my I think there's a lot more left for me to do and a lot more left for me to teach. I'm not ready for the wraparound porch and the rocking chair and the dogs and the grandkids. I can manage to always, if I'm going to say that your life is full of successes, why would I stop doing what I'm doing? What would be the purpose behind that? And so I tend to push myself and continue to push myself as as long as I'm not running marathons. I can watch a marathon, but I'm not running any marathons. And I can help kids out. And I can help, and I say kids, I mean anybody under 30 years old. So usually I'm talking about 15 years old. Like my nephew, my nephew was in a bad situation. It's taken 6 months for me to, I shouldn't say for him to see that he has a future doing other things.
Yeah.
He was trapped in that survival loop, right? That I'm not going to, and I think he's indicative of most kids his age that can't see a future. And he said to me the other day, I want to join the Marine Corps. I was like, okay. You got to do Marine Corps things before you become a Marine Corps, right? You got to do things before you can't just show up and go, I want to be a Marine. It's like, you can't run, you don't push ups and sit ups, and you got to get ready for it. Because don't they do, I saw the movie in that, some documentary, because they do all that when you get there. I'm like, yeah, but those people aren't going to make it because it's too far. Um, he goes, what do you mean? I go, if the requirement for you is to run 8-minute mile, I say
Yep.
2 miles and that's 16 minutes. That's a requirement. That's on day one. So everybody comes in, they start running at 9-minute miles. And they're going to get you down to 2 miles at 8 minutes. I go, that's a lot, but it's a minute. You can't run a mile right now in 15 minutes.
Mm.
And so you can't run around the block. So you're talking about 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes to lose per mile when you're not running. And so I'm just giving you the math behind it. Like if you can't run around the block now, there's no way you're going to run that 8-minute mile or 7-minute mile.
Yeah.
That's how far back you're going to be. And I said, there's no recourse for you to be to be better unless you're going there doing 8-minute miles when you get there. And that's why you're going to be ahead. I would never want to go there being in the back of the pack. It's just like that. Yeah. You want to be in the front. Everybody in special operations is in great shape because they know that they're going to be pushed beyond where they are right now. And I said to my nephew, I said, look, man, you're probably at 40% of what you could probably do, maybe less. I wouldn't put it more than that of what you think what you can do. And I said, I don't know, because the way you were brought up, I don't know how to tell you that it's probably not that high.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more thing. And I typically train people, and this is what I learned as a leader as well, is that there are no finish lines.
Yeah.
There's some combat. You can go in, hit something, and come back out. And you got to get jocked up and get loaded up and go out and do it again, give a quick frag order, and you're back out there. So you never rest on, oh, thank God we're done. And I think that's in life as well, is that you can't look for the finish line. And then when I watch kids train, I look at how they cross the finish line on a race or something. My nephew's a perfect example. If I told him to run a mile, I'm looking at would he stop at a mile or would he run a little bit past that mile?
Yeah.
Because like if you give up, I'll use my block for an example, is that run around the block, it's 4 corners, and then you're running at the same pace for the first 3 corners. And that last corner, you come down that long straight. Are you going to attack that straight or are you going to slow down and then stop at that line? Right. And people typically slow down and stop at the line.
Yep.
Which means they gave up a long time ago. They're not looking to improve their scores, their times, or reduce. And running's a real good thing because running's difficult for a lot of people. But if you're not able to, like, I'm going to push myself on every lap to become faster, and that last lap is all out because I want to know where I'm at for the next time I come back out there. And I don't run through that line, that finish line, then I know I'm only training to what my limitations are. And those limitations are me. Yeah. Then why would you go out and ride 100 miles in a weekend? Because I have time.
Yeah, chasing hard things is a theme that I've seen with you, and I think with most people like that come from the community is and I'll never forget this in Ranger School, 8-minute mile, 5 miles. That's the standard.
Right.
If you run that in Ranger School, they will pull you off the course because you're not going to make it in time because you have to go down and turn around. They will pull you off the course. So I went to Ranger School and I was running around a 32-minute 5 mile, somewhere around there, because I wanted to be so above that standard when I got there that no one could tell me that I couldn't do it. Same way with the ruck march. I ran the ruck march the whole way. Why? Because I wanted to make sure confidently people knew I was here to, I'm here to show up. I'm not here to quit. I'd love to kind of transition though, kind of wrapping this up into what you're currently doing right now, especially with some of the books that you're working on. If you could share those.
Yeah. There's 2 books I'm in the process of writing. One's about where I'm at with the companies and the team building, how to inspire people. What is inspiration? I think that'll be the title of that book, is what is inspiration? Because I don't think people understand what their inspiration really is as a leader, and how you get it and how you hold it and how you maintain it. And then what do you do for yourself? Because a lot of times we talk about leadership, we don't talk about what healthy approaches are we taking for ourselves. Yeah. And what are our, how do we maintain that? And who do we look to? And people think that as leaders, that you just have that, You're just like, oh yeah, I just know this stuff. It's like, no, there's a whole education behind staying on top of things that you do on your own because it's important for your people. You're not
Yeah.
walking on your junior people like, hey, I just read this book and I want to get a big. Do you like this book? I like this book too. Thank you. No, you're looking for other people. You look for inspiration, quotes. You look for inspiration, other individuals. You see how other people are doing things wrong and doing it right, and then you talk to your fellow peers
Yeah.
about. But the higher you are, the less people you can talk to.
Yeah.
The less outlets you should have. The other book is, and I've changed the name of it a couple of times, but it was originally going to be the Subdue Trident.
Yeah.
And then Where Do I Fit In? And Subdue Trident, Where I Fit In is the Trident's dark, it's black. The Trident is what SEALs get. And then Where Do I Fit In? And that goes more of my journey as, an African American or Black. I'm not sure what the term is these years, but I want to say Black. But it's like my journey is the same as everybody else's. But people think it's different, but it's not. It's the exact same journey. It's the same kind of things you would experience when you're going through the program, and how I got to where I was in the SEAL team, and how I got to SEAL Team 6. So it was like, what do I think? Why was I the fastest runner? I was not the fastest runner. I was a decent, better than average swimmer. I was strong in push-ups, pull-ups. I was strong in dips. But all the other stuff I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what the SEALs did, half the things they did when I came in. So everything was new for me. It was learning for me. And challenges, right? The first time you repelled, right? I was scared to death the first time I repelled off.
Oh yeah, I screwed it up.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
It's so right. My hands were burning. I was just coming off the wall. I was like, what the hell? And then all the things I've learned since then, all those experience and going to Fort Benning and jumping out of the mighty Ungawa Tower. I don't know if that's still there. Yeah. But that stuff, all those things were experiences that I would sit there sometimes and go, I can't fucking believe I'm doing this stuff. That was me looking around at Fort Benning. It's just like, I can't believe I'm doing this stuff. And this is the Army.
I remember the first time jumping out of a plane. We're in airborne school, and there's these like two privates, and I just got out of Ranger school, so like I was just like, I just don't care. Just throw me out. I don't care.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there like, how are you so calm right now? It's like, I have faith in my equipment, and I'm just going to go do it. They looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, you're not nervous at all? I was like, no, if I die, I die. But I've been trained well, so I think we can do this.
Yeah, no, people don't think. No, people don't think that way. It just, yeah. I remember when I jumped out the first time, I was like, it's quiet.
Yeah.
Because you jump out and it's like, it's quiet. Wow, it was really noisy in that plane. This is me on my way down. I checked my canopies, and I was like, oh shit, I'm getting ready to land. Here's 1,200 feet. It's like, no, slip right. Yeah, I just remember that some of the times that my brain is processing things differently. I'm not like worried about, like you. I wasn't worried about the gear, the equipment.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I was amazed at when you stand up with the sticks, right? You get your stick, and you need to get up, stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door. All stuff they teach you, and you're like, man, this is really and people are hesitating because you can feel that bump. And you just boom, 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 and all you hear is of them jumping out of the plane. And I thought, it was so, because it's so noisy. And then when you get out there, it's like, oh, this is really quiet. Okay, where's that guy there? Okay, that's good. My mind's processing everything that's out there. And I don't think everybody does that. I think a lot of people who are afraid are just like, the ground's coming up real quick, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
No, I think that
focus on the fundamentals.
Yeah, I think operators get out and they go, okay, this is what I got to do to make shit happen. And I think that translates to everything else you do, is that you can, and I don't say it doesn't slow down, but you're able to capture a lot more things that are happening with your situational awareness than most people are, because you are in special operations. And I think it's a lot more to do with how you were brought up and who you are, who you were born. Because like you said earlier, there's 1% of people are in special operations. There's not a million Rangers, right? There's not a million Delta guys. There's not a million PJs. There's a couple hundred, right? I think I made it under 1,000 Rangers. I could be wrong with that.
3 battalions. I'd have to look that up. It's probably less than 5,000 for sure.
Yeah. That's not a lot. That's not really, not like, like you consider the Army as big as it is when all the stuff they do. Yeah. And you got 3 battalions. The SEALs couldn't put a battalion together to save their lives. They could, so there's a lot of training that goes into those guys and gals nowadays. That's. My nephew wanted to be a ranger. His dad was a SEAL, was captain. So, hey, man, you got to run. He's like, no, I'm good. The recruiter
Well, the
told me
Army is, yeah, you got to run.
he's on his feet. So he missed the test by like 4 seconds or something. And I was like,
Oh,
yeah, it's like,
try
it's four
again.
seconds. Yeah, but I'm like, it's
Go.
4 seconds. He's like, it was just 4 seconds. I go, yeah, it's 4 seconds over.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one becomes a ranger with the time over. Over. It did no. You should have been like a minute under. I don't know I don't know what the test was to enter, but he was over like 4 seconds. Because I was over 4 seconds. I can't believe they're not going to take me. I'm like, they're not going to take you because you didn't meet the minimum requirements.
Minimum standard to get
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
organization.
that's it. That's it. So they sent them to typically special operations. They're like, okay, great, you're good to go. You can stay in the Army, but you're going to go to
82nd Airborne.
no. You would think no. I went to
Yeah.
the gate guard up in
Oh
Fairbanks.
no.
Yeah.
That's, no, I'm sorry for him.
You know what? But I don't. Like I tell people, I don't know what it's like to quit. I don't know what happens with you when you quit. I don't know. I don't think that way. You know,
Mm.
family something is different,
Yeah.
but quitting something, I try not to feel anything at all. But being booted out of something, it's like, fuck, what? Really? What did I do? And I see that with the SEAL teams. When they drop people, they like, what happened to them? I go, I don't know. Why don't you know? It's like, why would I know? I don't know where people go when they leave the program. I know I started with this number and this is why I got left. These are the guys I'm
Yeah.
worried about. And I'm sure you're the same way. You're the guy in the
Yeah.
Rangers. Like you said, you had 2 people left over. Like, I don't know what these guys did. I never thought about myself I never thought about it at like, let me get inside your head and see what's going on inside your head. I don't, no. You're supposed to do this. You didn't do that. You should be out of the team.
Mm.
Yeah. I hope you leave. That's not like
Well, in respect to your time, I have a final show segment, and I call it the Killer Bees. So you'll enjoy this. So same 4 questions I ask everyone. I kind of like tweak the leads a little bit, but be brief, be brilliant, be present, and be gone. If you're ready, we'll jump into them.
okay.
So the first question is, what do you believe separates a good leader from an extraordinary leader?
How they treat their people.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much is how they treat your people, because the people, you can do it for yourself, but your team, your teams can magnify everything as you're doing.
Yeah.
So, and I say that along with that, I think the hardest thing to do is let your people do what they can do for you. We typically want to have all the answers and do everything, but our team knows how we think. They know what we need, and they can do those for me. I learned that the hard way a couple of times with people, and I'm like, I'm just going to let you do what you do. That's what you do. Like and they're like, well, that's what you hired me for. I'm like, you're right. I'm better with them than I am without them. So I just steer the ship, and everybody. I guess a good way of looking at it is Captain Kirk. I'll use a Star Trek reference. I'm sorry.
Oh, I love it. You already sold me.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Reference. Captain Kirk sitting on the bridge, and he says, we need to get through this plasma field, and I want to get out of here right away. And then he calls down to Scotty and says, Scotty, give me more power. He says, Captain, I need 10 minutes because you got 2. And then everybody else, the comms and the medical people and the teams, everybody is like working towards what he wants them to do. And they get out of it, and they're like, "I'm good. We got out of that XYZ. Captain, you made a good decision, last minute decision." He goes, "Well, I relied on my instincts." And that's because people trust that you can get them out of situations because they trust you. I think having a great team around you sends you to the next level as far as like being a great leader. That's the difference. Your people around you make you a great leader.
That's probably one of the best answers I think I've had out of like 97 different episodes filmed. So question 2, what is one resource that you would recommend to someone that wants to be a good leader or just starting out a leadership journey?
A resource. I think a well-read leader. Look at how other great leaders did it. I would say the style of other leaders, like look at your boss, talk to your boss, but they're only going to tell you what they want you to hear.
Yeah.
Right. Right. But if you read, when people put it all on the table, the better you can educate yourself with the books that are out there. You should use a variety of books, not just all combat books. You should use psychology books. You should use psychology books. You should use sociology books. You should use philosophy, and those are things that are going to help you as a good leader. I think those are the things that are going to help you, especially like what the hell am I thinking about? Philosophy.
Yeah.
It goes back hundreds of years. Like I can quote stuff from Marcus Aurelius, but that came back. That's Stoic, right? But that's been around for 400 years, maybe more than that, 500 years.
Timeless wisdom.
Timeless wisdom, right? If you read a Genghis Khan book, it's like I can't believe that this wisdom it's been around and people keep using it. Use it all the time the right way. But if you have those values, then that stuff is easy for you. Right. You pull all those things, all those ideas, all those concepts in. And I think the older the book is with the information is better, because a lot of stuff nowadays is regurgitated old stuff. They're in the 60s and when people stop thinking. Right. So you get somebody like Jordan Peterson that whips out stuff. He's an anomaly about how he talks about things. But he's a great resource for information and how to become, a very stern person in what you do. And there's a few other people out there now, but basically the older stuff is really, really good.
So question 3, what advice would you give to your younger self if you were just starting off again?
Advice I would give to my younger self. I was asked this question a while ago differently though. How do you see yourself? And the one thing I would tell myself, if I could go back in time, the one thing I would say, run it down. Just run it the fuck down. Whenever you're doing something, run it down. And what that means is that always go after the win.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to learn more about not winning than you are winning. So if you're always trying to push yourself, then you fail. You're like, okay, what did I do wrong? So run it down. Everything, just run it down.
I love that advice. Fail fast and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
The last one, this is the hardest. How can our listeners find you and how can they add value to you, especially with some of the books you just talked about, your coaching company? What's the best way to reach Rob Roy?
Well, I have an Instagram. I have a Facebook. I have a Twitter account, and they're all under Trident. Trident, it's either Trident-CC or Trident_CC. And then once a day, right now, once a day, I send out a video. Probably anywhere from 35 to 40 seconds long on LinkedIn and TikTok. And you can go in there and you can go through all those 280 videos, and each one has a positive leadership message every day. And then after that, you want to contact me, then reach me at robertroy@trident-cc.com.
Rob, this has been an incredible episode. I really was going to continue to go probably to the 2-hour mark, but I don't want I want to have you back on the show, especially when you release your next book. I'm really excited to dig into that concept of inspiration, from a leader. But this has been an honor, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good day.
All right.